The call is recorded. They're fantastic. I trust we all had a nice day today. If you did not, please drink water and have a nice day. So I'll share my screen now. So we'll begin. 1 second. So let me know when you're casting my screen, yeah? Can you see my screen? Huh?
Yes, I can.
All right, fantastic. So for today, we'll be handling two things. John, move quickly. Um, so we'll do design thinking, and then I'll introduce you guys to Figma. So as every other thing, process cannot be skipped. Everything has process. Before you go on, before you drive to the supermarket, you have to get up, take your keys, or find your keys before opening the door, opening the car, starting it, then driving, coming back. You can't just wake up and decide that you want to appear in the supermarket today. So you have to follow a process, right? Same as design. So in the process for design is then design thinking. So what design thinking basically is a set of parts that that designers take before they arrive at the final solution that solves a user's need. I keep stressing the fact of solving users' need, right? Because whatever you do, if at the end it doesn't solve users' need, you've wasted your time. Sorry to say, but yes, you've wasted your time because you might have moved a step forward in your skills. That's fine, but you've wasted valuable time for both the company, the user, and on the long run, the roadmap of the company. Um, of course, this is me, so you know about me already. So I'll skip this. The design thinking process. So the design thinking process, as I earlier cited, is a set of process that we follow to arrive at a creative solution. So basically, it is a user-focused iterative process. By iterative, it means you come, you test, you change, you test until you arrive at a solution. You come, you test it, you design, you test until you arrive at the final solution. That's the meaning of iterative process. By understanding the user, defining the issues, and identifying new creative solutions through a process of creating and testing a hypothesis. While designing, everything we do, well, from the onset, it's all hypothesis. We don't know. We are just speculating that this our solution will solve the user's need. So until we test, we can't really say we have gotten a solution that solves a need. So this is the design process. There are 5 stages for design process, right? Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And the last one you see implement is actually if you're working with a full product, so you are going to hand over to the devs. So they handle the implementation, right? So that will affect you. You don't need to know how to code. You just push rectangles and circles and arrive at a solution. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Empathize is just you putting yourself in the shoes of users. That's the literal meaning of empathize. You thinking like a user. Define is after you've thought like a user, now map out the problem that you're trying to solve. Like defining the problem. Now, ideate is you then brainstorming. This is where your creative nature comes into play. Brainstorming of ways to solve the problem which you highlighted in the define phase, which you got from empathizing with users. I think how they are interconnected. Now, prototype is basically now you've gotten the ideation, you've brainstormed this stuff, they're in your head or probably on paper. Now it's time to make them in a form that the users will be able to use. That's prototype. So this is where you do your design, your interaction, prototyping, everything happens in the prototype phase, right? Now, lastly, testing. As I said, everything is hypothesis until tested. So you send this your prototype to users, a bunch of users, stakeholders, let them test, and let them see if what you did actually solves their problem. Now, when testing, you might find out that a user had a problem accessing the button to add to cart. And you take note of that. Now you go back to your prototype, you make the changes. During your testing, you might find out that the user wanted to buy a product, but your platform did not give you the room to buy. So now you go back to Ideate, brainstorm a way to make the user be able to buy, prototype, then test again. When you're done with all this, then you can give it to the developers to implement. And when they're done implementing, it's now out there in the public. As time goes on, users' needs are insatiable. So of course, things must crop up. You must look for ways to keep the business at a competitive advantage. That's where you are moving back to empathize, speaking with your users again. Hi, you've used my product. How do you feel about it? Does it do this, this, this? Whatever you get now, define ideas. So this is just a map of the steps we take um, before arriving at a final solution, which is termed a design thinking process. Empathize. So in this phase, designers observe, right? You engage your audience, you speak to users. The goal is to empathize with them so that you can know and understand them as much as possible and aim to delight them with your solution, right? So empathize is you getting to know your users, asking questions, getting to know more about your users, and so you can provide a solution for them. Give me 1 sec, please. Sorry. So the objective of this empathize phase, right? So what do we aim to achieve? So the main goal is to understand who the user is, right? What drives them? Why do they do what they do? What frustrates them? And what do they need? So this is you trying to get to know about your users. Just you trying to get to know about your users. So how do you do this? By performing user interviews. User interviews is just me probably speaking to you, of course, with consent, about what you are doing, how you find what you are doing, and does it frustrate you? What do you think would be better um, to help you do what you're doing easier? That's user interview. Me speaking with users, right? Survey forms are in a case where I can't get a hold of these users, right? So I send survey forms out. Um, maybe through WhatsApp, Twitter, LinkedIn, just send it out to the public, right? Get more data from them of what, of course, you set questions, right? Of who they are, what they do, what frustrates them, what can be better. And then in a scenario where you are conducting a user interview, you can record these interviews so that you can always fall back to it and watch it, get more insight about it, understand it, analyze it, before proceeding to the next phase, because whatever you gather here, you're going to use it in the ideation phase, right? Or in the define phase. So the next phase is the define phase. So this way, you've gotten the survey form responses, you've gotten the recording of your user interviews, you've gotten data of your potential users, right? Now it's time to highlight problems. As I said earlier, users need, you can't satisfy users. I mean, I see WhatsApp and then I want to be able to host a video meeting on WhatsApp. Or I come on Twitter and say I want to edit my post. You can't satisfy everybody. So now that's why you gather information from numerous people, analyze them, look for things that are appearing more than once. Right? Now you highlight this and you define them as a problem. Now what the objective of this phase? The objective is to analyze the information you gathered and define the core issues at hand. You wouldn't want to solve everything. So you just identify the core issues at hand. What are people complaining more about, right? How do I then help these people reduce their complaint? So how do we achieve this? You listen to recordings, as I earlier highlighted, analyze responses from your survey form, and then you handle matchmaking. By matchmaking, I mean if user A says they want to be able to edit their tweet, user B said the same thing, user C said the same thing. Now it's appearing more than once, so then you take it down. Okay, this is a problem. So that's what I mean by matchmaking. So remember that this is an iterative process in the sense that if at this stage of defining a problem, you find out that you can't really put pen on what the problem is, you can go back to empathize, go back to speak to your customers, speak to your users, understand them, ask the right questions. Then you come back to define the problem. Ideation. So when ideating, so this is where you sketch your now you've gotten data from your users, you define the problem. Now it's time to then brainstorm solutions. So this is where you do paper sketches. You just start sketching. How do I solve this? How do I solve this? How do I approach this? Brainstorm ideas. There might be something that it's not feasible currently, but then it's a solution. Write it down. Put them on paper. I always tell whoever I come across with that pencil over pixels. Pencil over pixels. Pencil is your normal pen and paper, yeah? Pixels is when you come online and when you come on Figma to do your magic. Now, the advantage of sketching first before designing, it might be tedious. I mean, you might think that it's too much problem sketching before designing, right? But now when you're sketching, you are not bound to, you're emotionless. If you design straight up, start seeing that I like the way this my blue color just set, it just rhyme. If I change this one, the user will understand. Now that's the problem. Well, if it's on pen and paper, there's no color there. You're just drawing rectangles, making scribbles on paper, aimed at solving the problem. And also, you can quickly iterate. You see, this doesn't work, squeeze it straight away. This doesn't work, erase it. But on pixels now, if it doesn't work, you'll first think of the time you invested in creating it, and then you will now try to bend it to work. And that's a problem. So the goal of this stage, the ideation phase, is to ideate / brainstorm as many solutions as possible. Right? You can bring in your friends. You must not be the one that handle it. If you're working in a team, bring in team members because in the end is for the greater good of everyone. How do you think we should tackle this problem that we've gotten from our define phase? How should we handle it? So you will get insight. The way a banker will approach this, it's not the same way an engineer will approach it, right? So, but then They are all solutions. You write them down. At the end, you now tailor them to the larger demographic of users and the business point of view. Because if it's not an NGO website or an NGO platform, um, everything ends in how do you give us money? That's what makes you a product designer, not just a UI UX designer. UI designer are just more about the interface and users, right? Product designer now thinks about the business. How do I convert these users? How do I make money for the business? How do I keep them running? How do I sponsor this trip to Las Vegas? How do I do this, right? But then you are going to attend to the bankers, you're going to attend to engineers. So you'd like to know, okay, how do you feel we should approach this problem? Like, what do you think would be a best solution? When they give you solutions, you write them down, you run your paper sketches, and run user flows. User flow basically is, as I highlighted earlier, my first example of the going to the supermarket sample. Now, the flow it took me was one, I got up, got my keys, went to the car, and drove to the supermarket. Now, that is my user flow, right? Now, that's my user flow. For that particular task, that's the flow I should take. Now, for a different task, where how does the user add to cart, right? So they land on the platform, they see a product, click on it, see the product details, click on the button add to cart. That is the flow it takes for a user to add to cart. Now, when you have all these things stretched out, you will now know what each section entails. I mean, now you know that you need a landing page where the user will land. Now you know that you need a second page where they click on the product, and then you need a feedback if they add to cart. You need to tell them that it has been successfully added to cart, right? So that helps you in breaking out your flow. Now you can't do all this right from design phase, the prototype phase. It will be too much stress for you. Sorry, who's that? Who's that? Wow. Now, as I said earlier, the benefit of this phase is so you can easily change without wasting time. At the same time, you can conceive multiple variations. You can bring out multiple variations without emotions. You're not bound to colors. You're not bound to alignments. Just whip out sketches, right? Now, when you're done with all this, you can also test your sketches. By testing your sketches is you as the person, you have your flow. Now look at your sketch. If I click on this, will it come here? Will it come here? Oh, there's a page missing. Oh, I need another sketch, right? That's you testing your sketches. You lay them out bare. Okay, click on this button, you come here. Click here, you come here. No, I think you come here. So that is you testing your sketches. When you're done with all this, then you can now move into the prototyping phase. Now this is where you come on Figma. For me though, yeah. Now this is where I come on Figma. So I come here, of course, if I have the brand color style guide, I come on Figma, then now put all these my sketches into into a usable format, a format where my team members can see, stakeholders can see, developers can use and implement, so the users can use. Because on paper, we can't do nothing with your paper, it's for you, right? But when you can now come on Figma, you can now make it into a usable format. So this is where you come here. Now, the essence of coming here is to flesh out those ideas that you've gotten from your ideation stage, flesh them out, link them. By linking, it's called prototype. You link them so that it's interactive. If you click here, it comes here. You link them, then you cannot test. So it's at this stage, then after what you have here, you now send it to users to test. So the objective, this is an experimental phase, right? Aimed at finding the best possible solution and flushing out any constraints and issues you may have overlooked in the previous phase. Because in as much as it's sketches, right? in your mind, you might say that, okay, I need, okay, I will now give the user a feedback of added to cart successfully, but you didn't sketch it out. That's fine. Now, when you now come to the prototype stage, when you're now doing your high-fidelity designs, you now need that page. That's what the last line says here. And flushing out constraints and issues you may have overlooked in your previous steps. How do you do this? High-fidelity designs and interactions. I think we've highlighted interactions before. Basically, to let users know that you've made an action, you give them a subtle interactions, and also to connect with the way they feel, right? In a mobile app, I'll use the example of your air flight, yeah? So you want to book a flight. Now, I can have a screen where I just see an airplane right on my face. But I can also have another screen where the airplane will be moving, right? Clouds will be moving, and it will seem like, I mean, this is how I will experience it when I board on this flight. Now, both of them achieve the same purpose. You sent a message to the user, but one did a better job because he now tapped into the emotion of the user by giving them that subtle interaction. That's where interaction comes into play in UI design. So as I said earlier, right, you have 5 stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So we're in the first stage, which is prototype. Now the last stage is testing. So now you have a working prototype. You can now meet your team members, right? Recruit users, or go back to meet those users that you spoke to during your Advertise phase, right? And then you give them your product, your prototype. Let them test it, see if it achieves the goal that they wanted to achieve, basically. That's the essence of this testing. You've done your thing, right? In between, there might be some designer bias because in as much as we want to advocate for users all the time, there are sometimes where we go out of line. But then this testing helps us call us back to mind that design is not for you, it's for the users, right? So you might have used an icon to denote home, but the moment we are testing the users and we tell them, can you go to the home screen? They do not know where to click. That's a problem, meaning it's not intuitive enough. So then we have to now go back to our prototyping phase and make it work. So how do you achieve this, right? So while users interact with your product, let them think aloud. If you can ask them to think aloud, that will help you in getting valuable data from this testing session. Possibly, if you can, right, with consent, record the session so you can know where users are tapping more, where they are clicking on, what they are thinking at each time, so that you can always fall back to it, watch it, then go back to make necessary changes if need be, right? As with other previous phases, this is an iterative process because you gain more insight as you conduct different tests. Now, you will not want to tell the user to, hi, use the app. What do you think? No. You set test questions. How can you add to cart? Can you create a post? Can you help me call your mom? Simple tasks like that, ideal tasks that a user would want to perform on your product, right? So then see how they behave with it. They might enter a screen now and then the way they will do their eye, you will think, what happened? They'll say the red, you know that okay, there's a problem with that red color I used there. But it might be possible that you do not make your button visible enough. You see that they're spending too much time performing a task, then you would want to go back because time is money, right? You would want to go back and iterate on that particular flow. So empathize is you getting to know your users, right? By asking them, conducting user interviews, performing user research, um, sending out survey forms, right? Having some recordings to always fall back to. Now the second phase is the define. Now you have all this data from numerous users. Now define the problem aligned to the company's goal. Now the third phase is ideate. You define the problem. Now do your thing as a designer, as a creative. ideate solutions, brainstorm solutions, possible solutions, not solution. There are many ways to kill a rat, right? Not solution. When I think it might be just one solution, but when you look deep, you see that okay, there might be another way to do this. That's the ideation phase. Then we have the prototype. Now that's where you go on your design tool and then flesh out your ideations and link them up if need be to create a prototype, a working interactive prototype, so that you can also share with your teammates, so that you can also have a feel of what it's like, right? And lastly, after prototyping, you test. This is you falling back to your users because it's for them. Yes, it's for the company to make money, yeah. It's for you for your portfolio, but then it's for them, right? So you let them, okay, how does this solve the problem the earlier encountered? Does this reduce your stress in performing the action that you had a problem performing earlier? All these questions will be answered after your testing phase. Now, sometimes I get questions like, do I need to follow all this process before I arrive at the end? There might be some client that will not give me the room to flex my muscles in terms of following this process. I mean, someone can come up to you and tell you he needs an app to connect all shoemakers together, and he needs it in 14 days, right? Now you do not have time to handle A, B, C, D, E. You don't have that much time to handle it. So what you can do is leverage on existing platforms. Platforms that people already use that are related to what you have. Use that to get your research. Use that to handle your user research, right? Go under there, see what people are complaining about, see what way via Apple reviews online, see what people are talking about them. Now you have a pain point of users. Now address it to the client's goal, his business idea. Now derive a solution, sketch, design, prototype. Now the testing, you might not really have too much time to test, but you can call a couple of your friends, yeah, and then set the testing questions we highlighted. Say it's a shoemaker app, right? Just tell your friend, so your shoe is bad, yeah. Can you use this app to see how you can order for a shoemaker? Now show them your prototype. Let them do the work for you. A day or two, you are done with that. Now you've done all the phases, but you did not go in depth in it. But yes, you followed the process. Now, best believe at the end you would have achieved what the client wanted to achieve and possibly exceeded their target. So the design process, yeah. First off, you analyze the brief, identify key requirements. This key requirement is you then ideating, right? I mean, you then researching what users need with what the business wants, finding a common ground, validating the business idea. Because as a product designer, right, it's one thing to design, it's another thing to validate the idea. Now, I can come up to you and tell you I want to create a shoemaking app, right? But then when you look at the target demographic, and you see that there might not be a potential use for this your product in the long run, you can then validate this idea by doing a little research, right? And then letting the client know that for my findings, this, but we can also pursue this task and see where it leads us. You've told them that the idea is good, but right now it might be nice to push the target audience to a different location. I mean, if I want to get shoemakers in Bauchi, for example, it might not be too great because already there they might have influx of all these things and the end users might not be much, right? But then if I take you to Lagos, for example, I'll say, okay, yes, this would be useful because a working class person would not need to go too far in searching for a shoemaker, but just basically you're just validating the idea. But then there are some times that you might not want to do that because the client is strong-headed, collect your money. Now, after you're done with um, identifying key requirements, yeah, do your research. That is what we talked about. Sending out survey forms, getting to know about these users, basically. Now, when you have this data, run into ideas development, idea generation. That's where you do your sketches, you do your low fidelity wireframes. Then idea development is where you now run your high fidelity designs. When you run your high fidelity designs and prototypes, right? Then production is if this production is in a case where there was no time to test, or rather you did your internal testing, but it was not enough, right? So the developer can just whip out, you can let him know that I want to test this key functional section, which is adding to cart. Can you design the screen for me and just whip out something for me? Let me send to people to test. You can do that in production phase. Then you test, getting feedback, implement. Evaluation is you now coming back to evaluate from the company goals. These are what they wanted. They wanted to achieve this, this, this. From user perspective, these are what they wanted, achieve this, this, this. Now, from the feedback I got from my testing, did I achieve this, this, and this? That is you evaluating what you've done. Then, if need be, then you dive into redesign. So redesign is now you've gotten feedback from users. If the product is live, you now want to iterate on it and make it better to solve more of their needs. So it's a cycle, right? And you must not follow everything bumper to bumper. So this is just the in-depth of the design process. But the standard 5 is you empathize. I mean, we've highlighted what empathize is, getting to know your users. You define, right, which is getting a problem statement. You ideate, which is brainstorming solutions, possible solutions. You prototype, which is designing or high fidelity designs and running an interactive prototype for testing purposes. And lastly, you test. Now you can go back and forth, as I earlier said. It must not be chronological, right? You can go back and forth. I might have done my advertising phase, but when I'm doing my defining, I see that I cannot highlight a particular problem. I go back to empathizing. Or I might be ideating and I see that there's a feature I want to include, but to me it works. I can now jump to empathizing quickly, ask a couple of users if they want to approach it this way, get feedback, validate your idea in your ideation phase, and continue the process. And I be testing and I see that it was a problem clicking the button. I jump back to prototype or ideation, find a way to make it work. Prototype again, test again. Does it work now? Very good. Now we are done. We can now hand it over to the developers. So the next one is getting started with Figma. Yeah. So I'll entertain questions for this phase, but I don't want to pack everything together and then at the end of the whole today's class, you might have forgotten what you wanted to ask. Yeah. So if anybody have questions for these particular 5 phases of design that we highlighted, if anybody has any question, I would like to take that now. Yeah, please, you raised your hand. Yes, Chidima.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Question is for the empathizing phase where you said we interview the users and all of that. Is it the designers that do that, or is there someone else, or it has to be designers that will do the interview, that will handle the interview?
Okay. So this is where the UX designer comes into play. This phase is where the UX designer comes into play, right? So if you want to be a UI UX designer or a product designer, then you want to familiarize yourself with how to empathize with users. If you want to specialize in just UI designer, then you should be bothered with only the prototype phase, because a UX designer would have empathized, would have gotten a problem statement by linking it with the client goals, and would have ideated if possible, right? Then yours is just to do the colors, do the alignment, do the interaction, make it beautiful, make it usable, and hand it back to them. Then they do the testing. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, but our advice, yeah, that if you want to, when learning these, you can learn in a T format, yeah. So have a general idea of both UI and UX. so that whenever you're called upon, you can drop your 2 cents. Have a general idea, then you can specialize in one. You get, so know how to empathize, because for the early stages, you will be doing both of them. Especially if you want to intern with a Nigerian company, nobody will ask intern for only UI designer. It has to be both, right? So you would want to know how to empathize, want to know how to draft out, analyze your data from the empathize phase, draft out problems that you can define, know how to sketch problems at the ideation phase, sketch solutions, sorry, know how to use your design tool to do the alignment, the hierarchy, colors, typography, all of that. Then know how to test also. So testing is basically you going back to your users, asking them, okay, I have something for you now, yeah? Can you help me run it? Can I run it by you to see if it works for you? And then if they say that's fine by them, you test and you ship off to the developer, get your pay and buy suya. Any other questions? Any questions in the chat? So no question for this design process phase. I was saying that all of us understand this design process the way you would want to understand it. So if I call upon you now to
Sorry.
explain, yeah.
Okay, so are you like saying that everything is like a cycle? So if there's an error, if I'm getting it right, if there's an error in, let's say, the prototype phase, for example, maybe you talked about the buttons, home button and stuff. So you have to like go over it again until everything is perfect.
Yes.
So what if there are times that maybe a company would have their end goal for themselves and for the user. So have there never been times where there is a conflict?
No, yeah, there's a time where there's a conflict of, but then now the problem was you, not the company, right? The problem in the scenario you cited, the problem was you, not the company, not the users. It was you. So yes, the company had their own target, but your solution did not solve their problem. I mean, it was difficult for users to get what they wanted to get. It can pass off, like you can turn a blind eye to it, turn your face, and then allow it just go. But in the long run, that what you did will affect the company. So you can then cut out time from your leisure time to run by this process again. Now you might not really go too deep into it. That's why at every stage I advise to test at every stage, right? At the ideation stage, you can run your paper prototype. Basically, is you linking A to B to C to D, right? And then you just call in a couple of your friends. It must not be the actual user that you want to use. A couple of your friends, let them know why you want to, what you aim to achieve, and give them a question for a task to do. You've tested it on paper, and it works on paper. Then you now move to ideation and prototype. Now, if you are properly grounded in sizing, usability, typography, colors, alignment, right? The problems cited from the ideation phase, you would not repeat it in the prototyping phase because clearly you've been documenting that this person had a problem in getting this button. You will not repeat it in prototype phase. Peradventure you do, and you then move to the testing phase, right? Now you have a design, you have a prototype. Now you tell the user to use it. Now you won't need to jump back to empathize. You won't need to jump back to define because it's a problem with the button was not big, it was not legible enough. Now what we just do is jump back to a prototype, increase the size of the button, push it out again, right? Did I answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. So everyone right now knows what the design process is, yeah? So I would take that as a yes. I'll just call someone to just run me through as I know nothing about design, right? Just explain to me your process. Gift, Victor Gift. Are you here? And give Victor, are you here? We are running away. I see you. Yeah, Deborah, Deborah. So run me through your design process. Let me hide this one first. Deborah, are you here? So nobody is here now. I said, okay. But can anybody do that for me so that we can just confirm that the message that we passed to at least one person, then I can proceed to the next phase. Just take up the mic and just do that for me. All right, yeah, only one for you. Thank you.
So we have 5 stages of the design process: empathize, ideate, define, prototype, and test. So in the empathize phase, we talk to our clients, our stakeholders, to gain more understanding on what the project is. Then we ideate, that is like we brainstorm on different ideas, how to go about the solution, think about the problem statement, the solution, all stuff like that. Then we go to define. Sorry, is in define that we define what the problem statement is and state out the solutions on how we can solve them. Then after define, go to prototype. That is like designing your high fidelity screens, your mid fidelity screens to see how it's going to look in the real life, in the real world. Then now test. That is like you test it out with real users to see how they behave around it. If they like it, if they don't like it, then you just fix something. Then you can now iterate again. And understand from the feedback you're getting from your users, you now iterate again to make sure that what you are doing is making sense. So yeah, I finished.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I did cut you short at some point when you brought up the ideation before the define, but when you are explaining it, I knew you would correct yourself, and that was fantastic. So, and it is from you to every other person. So I assume that we all know the 5 stages you take before arriving at the final solution. You empathize. Empathize is getting to know your users, right? Not entirely your stakeholders. Getting to know your users, the end users, right? It's in the define phase. That's when you then define the problem you got from your end users. You then merge it with what the business wants. So this is where you talk to your stakeholders, right? You just hop on a call with them, ensure that you got their business perspective, what they want as a business, merge it with what you have as a from your data from empathize. Then you have a proper define a problem statement, right? Then you then go into the ideation phase where you do quick sketches of how to solve the problem, brainstorm quick solutions, how to solve the problem. Your home page can take 5 formats, 5 different layouts. It can take as many layouts as possible. That's where the ideation phase comes into play. Keep on sketching, put this button up, take it down. Just keep on sketching until you have things to choose from. Then when you now see the one that works, of course, after you've done your paper prototype, if you have the time, then you can now go into hyphenated designs, which is the prototyping phase. Hyphenated designs and interaction, then you can now test it to see that okay, it works the way the user wants it to work. It might work the way I want it to work, right? But then does it work the way they want it to work? Because at the end, I might not even use what I'm creating. I might not use the product I'm creating. So if I make it bend to my will, then we have lost. Now when you're done with testing, then you can now hand off to developers to implement. And then your job is done, but not done. As a designer, your job is not done until it has gotten to the users and you've gotten feedback that okay, what you did worked. That's when your job is actually done. when in job in quotes, right? When you hand it off to the developers, that's where your job is done. Any other things after they've implemented, they're coming back with feedback. So that's it about the design thinking process. So let's talk about Figma, right? So I've been introducing you guys to Figma. So Figma is a design tool used in creating those interfaces you see online. It's one of the design tools used in creating interfaces, basically digital interfaces, right? So to get Figma, just go to figma.com. And I know I said this yesterday, so go to figma.com. You should see something like this, right? Then click on try Figma for free or sign up. If you have an account, click on login. Now, if you have done this, or when you do this, right, I would appreciate it if we can do this so that as we go on, you can be following through. But then if you want to watch the video later on and follow through, that's fine also. But yes, Figma.com, Figma.com, click on one second. Yeah, so Figma.com, click on try Figma for free, create your account. When you create your account, you ask you questions, something like this. What would you like to do first? Yeah, so just say design with Figma because it's what you like to do first. Yes, you can do FigJam, but say design with Figma, and then this should be your canvas. Of course, when you do design with Figma, it will open a new design file for you, and then this should be your canvas. This is what you will see, just like this, right? Now, on the left-hand side, this is the layers panel. Anything you draw here would appear here. So this is the layers panel, right? On the right-hand side, this is where you can modify anything you draw here. So this is where you can handle the design of anything you draw here. Now this place is your canvas. This is where you can draw whatever it is you want. This place. So these are what I'll cover. Frame shapes, duplication, marks, blur effects, frames, and export. I not handle blur effect and masking today, but let me just go to Figma so that um, we can see what all this is all about, right? Right, let me just click this. So, as I said, this is what you will see. This is your layers panel, right? Can everybody see my mouse? Can you see me
Yes,
moving? Okay.
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Thank you. So this is your layers panel. Yeah, this is your layers panel. This is your design panel. If you want to do interaction, you come to click on this prototype, then you can now do interaction. If you want to inspect it and send to developers, you come here, you can now see this inspection, right? So I'll explain what this top is all about. So this is where I do my design, all this place. So all this place, this is where I do my design. I can keep going down and down and down. It's as big as, it's as long as, I'm still going down. Let me go up to this. So you can do it anywhere. You can start from the left hand side, draw it here. You can come here, draw it here. It's up to you, right? This is your canvas. So at the top here is what we call your navigation or your menu bar, right? This top. The first one you see here is your main menu. If you click on it, these are where you see options, other options. I'll come to this in a bit, but these are where you see other options, right? The second one is your move tool, right? So we have move and we have scale. So I'll just give you a sample. Now I'll draw a rectangle. Now if I'm on move, right, I can move this rectangle wherever I want, right? If I want to scale, now take a look at this place, 442436. If I scale it, it's moving the way I want. It's just moving, it's going up and it's coming down. But if I move it, it's going left. I have to come here and go right, come here, go up. But with scale, right, it can just scale up proportionally for me. So that's the difference between scale and move tool. You can come here and navigate to scale or move tool, right? And the shortcut is V for move, K for scale. As you use it, you will get acquainted with these shortcuts. So if I'm on move now and I want to do scale, I just click on K on my keyboard. This thing will change to like this, and then I can scale it the way I want. If I don't want to do scale again, click on V. It has changed to, and then I can move it the way I want. Right. Now the second one here is frame or slice tool. So frames are just like your paper. Frames are like a paper, right? So let's click on frame. Say we draw a frame, for example. Now this has become my paper. So now I can now do whatever I want. I can now write whatever I want inside. And if I move the frame, this thing inside moves with it. Unlike rectangle, because you might ask the question, why don't you just use rectangle instead of frames, right? So for rectangle, if I say I want to type inside this rectangle, I can come here, click on text, come here, and start typing. Now, if I move this rectangle, I am moving only the rectangle because they are individual elements. They are two different elements. But this one is more like your book, but this is then your writings inside your journal. That's what this is inside. That's what frame does, right? This is constrained by this, like a folder of this guy, basically. But this one is just normal. This one is just normal. Slice tool, I won't dive into slice tool because you would rarely use it as a designer, but it's basically you want to slice out a section of particular parts. You want to just slice out something, you use slice tool, but you will rarely use this as if you are working with interface, except you want to then start doing some magic illustrations on Figma, then you want to get to know more about the scale tool. But your primary go-to tool will be frame, right? Now speaking about frame, I just drew this frame based on vibes, right? But I might put this, let me take this tool out, right? This is not a standard frame. Because if I put this on my phone now, it will not fit into my phone, basically. So Figma did a good thing by giving us presets. So if you click on the frame tool at the right-hand side, right, under the design panel, you see different type of frame that you should select from. It's 100 large, 100 small, iPhone 8, 8 Plus, SE, 11 Pro, Pro Max, 13, 13 Pro, Pro Max, right? That's under phone. Minimize it, open tablet, you can see tablet, Surface 12, 8, 9, you can see tablet. If you're doing desktop, you come to desktop, you see desktop, MacBook, 16 inches, 14 inches, iMac. Now, clicking on any of these will give you the frame size. It just gave you a frame that is appropriate for MacBook Pro 14 inches. So if I take this screen and put it on any MacBook Pro, any MacBook Pro screen, it will fit in perfectly. But if I just did it based on what I wanted, I just draw something and it's feeling maybe it's enough for me, If I put it in any MacBook Pro, it will be too small, right? Or it will be too big, so it will not be blur. So that's why it's advisable to just use the frames that are given by Figma. As I said earlier, click on this, you will see presets. If you want to do a presentation, you just select any of it. If you are designing for watch, select your Apple Watch size you want to design for. If you're designing a brochure, right, you can select A4 paper, letter, if you're designing that. Social media, Twitter post, Twitter header, dribble shot, LinkedIn cover, select the size. Figma community, select the size. Then this archive are those old ones that are actually outdated now, but for some reason, if you want to then dabble with any of these, they give you an archive to select from and do your thing. So if you're designing for mobile, right, the advised format or the advised frame size to use is either the 11 Pro X or the 13 mini. Sometimes I don't commit this to memory, 13 Pro or whatever, I don't commit it to memory. I just handle the sizes 375 by 812. As you can see, this 375 by 812 is the same 375 by 812. That's because conventionally, most of the platforms they adapt to those two sizes, and then we can divide whatever I want to put into the screen equally, right? But then you don't need to design for every single screen. I mean, every single frame. The developer will handle that that responsiveness. You just think of designing for mobile, tablet, and websites. Then talking about design, I mean, for Android, for iPhone 8, the developer will handle all those stuff for a start, right? The developer will handle all the stuff. So I use 13 mini or 11 Pro. So clicking on it, you then get to see this is actually an 11 Pro screen, 375 by 812. So I would believe that whatever I put inside here, the way it is now, right? If you render it on an 11 Pro, it's exactly this way. But if I decide to maybe just use maybe something different, maybe something like this, if you render this on an 11 Pro, the screen will be as wide as this, and your button will just be here. So there's a problem, right? So just stick with using, click on the frame, come here, select a preset, 11 Pro or 13 mini, and then start designing what you want. Everything has to be inside the frame. You don't just come and then decide to just start drawing rectangles here, draw rectangle here. Everything has to be inside the frame so that you can properly align them and keep them where they are. You cannot visualize it and say, okay, this is how it should look like. I'm good to go. Right? Now, after the frame tool, the next one is your shape tool, right? This is your shape tool. So this is where you come to draw rectangles, circles, polygon, arrows, stars. This is your go-to person, right? So click on it. The default is rectangle. So if you click on it, whatever you're drawing now is a rectangle, right? Rectangle. But if you want another shape, you can click on the drop down and you will see rectangle, line, arrow, ellipse, polygon, star, and then you can place an image, right? The shortcuts are also here: arrow for rectangle, L for line, shift L for arrow, O for ellipse, right? To say I want an ellipse, I can just click on this place and then whatever I'm drawing is an ellipse. If I want a rectangle, click here, I want a rectangle. If I want a polygon, click here, I get my polygon. A triangle first off. If I now want to I want a pentagon, right? 5 sides, I can now go give me a pentagon 5 sides. For polygon, if you draw a polygon, right? And if you can't get me, if I'm too fast, yeah, shift to raise your hand. So that I won't go forward and then I come back again. If there's something you don't understand at any point, yeah, raise your hand. So yes, Chidima,
What you were mentioning the standard for mobile. What of for tablet and desktop? You said for mobile is 11 Pro X and 13 mini. What of for tablet and desktop?
So for mobile, 11 Pro, yeah, thank you. 11 Pro and 13 mini, that's because of the size, right? 375 by 812, right? 375, 812. So in 13 mini and 11 Pro, that's fine, right? For tablet, I usually go with 12.9. 12.9 because once it's adaptable, Apple, right? They are key on 12.9 inches tablet. So once it's adaptable there, it can fit into any other tablets. So I go with 12.9 iPad Pro, right? Desktop, I use 1440 by 1024. Well, actually use 900, not 1024, because I take out some things from the bottom. So I use 1440 by 900. But it's advisable to use 1440 by 1024 for your desktop size. If you are doing MacBook, right? If you want to design for Mac, right? Just use the 14 inches. Whatever you use for the desktop, it will fit in. That's a given. Where we will be bothered about the, the dimension is when we are handling dashboards, because dashboard dimension is different from web apps. Sorry, web apps are different from websites. So for website, you can run this because definitely, right? Definitely, this is not where all your information will contain. At some point, you need to still draw it down, right? And then you've gotten your whole website. But for dashboards, this is where your information will contain. Any other going down, it will hamper user experience because they have to scroll down to see that information. So you have to prioritize your information. So at some point, when if we get to web app part of things, then we're using 1440 by 768 as your standard web app size. But when we get there, then I can tell you why this and why that. So for mobile, 375 by 812, which is found in iPhone X, 11 Pro or 13 mini, right? 375, 812. For desktop, go with 1440, right? For desktop, go with 1440. For tablet, go with 12.9 inches. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Fantastic. Any other question pertaining to what we've covered so far? Covered the move tool and the scale tool. We've talked about frames, and we are currently in the shape tool. So if there's none, let's talk about the shape tools, right? So for shape tool, clicking on the drop down, you get this, and you have a rectangle. You can draw your rectangle, right? Now, if you notice, when I was drawing the rectangle, it was free wheel. I'm just drawing it the way I want. I want it down. I can go here, and then what if I want this rectangle to be 100 by 100 on both sides, making it a square, right? Now I can easily come here. This is design panel. This is width and height, right? I will come to the design panel soon, but for the purpose of this and what I want to achieve, which is a square, I can come to the width and put in my 100, right? Come to the height, 100, and I have my square. Perfect square, right? That's fine. But that's too much stress, right? So, I have to first draw the thing I want to draw before I now come here and then start modifying. That's too much stress. So what I can do is I can hold the shift key in designing your interface on Figma, yeah, and any other tool except some change, yeah, but Adobe XD and Figma Sketch. Shift means constraint. Shift, holding down your shift key is telling it to constrain it, meaning whatever happens to the left hand side, make it happen to the right hand side, right? So if I'm drawing a rectangle now, I hold my shift key down and draw my rectangle. Now, as you can see, right, it's 1 to 1, 1 to 1. If I hold my shift key, I'm drawing it, 505, 505, right? But if I don't hold my shift key, right now, my hand is not my shift key, and I draw it, now you can see that there's a problem. I'm having 670, 695. So shift means constraint, right? So if I want to draw a rectangle, I hold shift, give me a perfect square, right? If I want to draw a circle, this is an ellipse tool, not a circle. But then the difference between an ellipse and a circle is that for circle, it's the same thing, 120 is the same thing as 120, right? We get a perfect circle. So if I want a circle, I could come here, get my circle, hold my shift key, and get the perfect circle I want. Constrain into whatever is here, be here, and get a perfect circle, right? Instead of doing ellipse, then come here and modifying it to give me a perfect circle. That's not what I want. So shift means constraint. As you use it often, it sticks, right? The next one is the line tool. Now you can use line for dividers. I mean, you want to draw a line now. As you can see, I'm having to manually think of if it's in the center or not, right? But once I hold my shift key, it constrains it to the center for me. Right now, I'm holding my shift key. So it constrains it to center and at 45 degrees, right? So if I hold my shift key and I move down, it gives me 45 degrees down straight. If I go up 45 degrees up, if I move again 90, let's go. 155, 180, let's go. And then I'm like that again. So shift key like constrains what you're drawing, gives it follow a direct path when you're going. So this for line, I can just draw the line and I've gotten my divider. That's fine for me. Or whatever I want to use the line to do, right? That's okay. That's for lines. Come here, select line, or click on L on your keyboard. Arrow for rectangle, L for line. Arrows is click on it, it's the same thing. If I want to draw an arrow, as usual, I'm just drawing it now, scattering. But holding my shift key, oh yeah, come back. And it's just giving me the way I want it in definite angles, right? For maybe I want a different angle. Maybe I don't want it to be equal as 135. Then I can now just come inside here and maybe tell it to give me, yeah, give me 130, 138 for whatever reason I want, right? So then I have 138. That's for your arrows. We've talked about ellipses and then polygon. So polygon, once you click on it, you draw the triangle. As usual, clicking on this is an isosceles triangle now, maybe two-sided or whatever, yeah? But if I want to collect that triangle, I can just hold the shift key and it constrains it for me. It gives me equal sizing. Same thing on the left, same on the right, just equal, right? Now this is a triangle. Say I want a polygon for some reason. Maybe I'm doing something, I'm being creative, I want a polygon. So I can just come, I'm seeing two nodes here. One is for radius, one is for count. So I can move this count to 5 and I just click on it, drag up 4, drag up 5. I have a polygon, right? I can still click on it, drag up, I keep going, I can keep going till I get a perfect circle. Then you know, okay, this is my max. I can't go more than this. Any other going returns you back to count 3, right? So that's for polygon. There are two things here. One is the count. If you come in here, you see that one is the count. If you hover on it, one is the count, one is radius. So radius is just more about the bending of a corner. So this is sharp edge. But if I increase the radius, see that okay, that is giving me a more don't disturb, work in progress, men at work. It's giving me that vibe, right? But if I want it to now become okay, then it gets me the circle. I don't know if all of us get. So that's for polygons. Then we have star. Star is you just draw your star. As usual, hold your shift key, constrain the star. If you want the star to have more, find the count, increase the count of the star, and then you form your sun if you want. Or get whatever you want, your starfish, that's fine. This one is for radius, make it curving. Then this is for ratio. So how do you want it? Should it be inside or should it be outside? So for star, they have 3. For polygon has 2. Yeah. Circle has 1. All it does is, do you want a semicircle or you want a full circle. So if I want a semicircle, I come to this place, and then if I draw it, I'm getting what I want, semicircle. Or maybe I don't want semicircle, I want it like this, I get it, right? If you observe, when it opened up, it now broke into three. One, two, three. So for circles, the first one is sweep, is start. Once you draw the circle on your Figma here, when you're practicing, the moment you hover on it, you will see what it's for. So more of this is actually by doing curiosity. What does this do? What does this do? Oh, this is what it does. That's when it then sticks, right? So if you come to this place, you see that it starts. So if you click on it and you drag it, you see that, okay, I want you to start from somewhere here. That's fine. As usual, as you're going, hold the shift key, you're moving it to go in 15, just small, direct, instead of having some points. Now the second one is radius, right? So ratio, do you want it to be like this? I know you've seen some donuts that are like this, right? Now this is the ratio. Then you can bring and you've made a donut circle, right? This one is called your sweep. So how do you want the second end of the thing to, where do you want it to be? So do you want it here, or do you want it here, or how do you want it? Right? Your sweep. So as you practice with it, you will see what each of them are used for. So I've handled for circle. We've spoken that this is sweep. Well, once you open it, then it then breaks into three. One is start, meaning where do you want to originate from. Second one is how do you want the circle inside to be. You see some things that are like this, and then maybe there are two. Then one is inside and a different color, right? Yeah, you see that maybe one is a different color. Maybe your tracker, right? Your those that work out. So you see something like now. This is how the designer achieved that. So I will talk about this panel soonest. I'll just rush quickly because aim was to smash two with one, but I don't know about time. But yeah, let's go. So yes, somebody raise their hand. Yes, continue, please. Turn down the volume of your radio set.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I said honestly I'm lost because there's like so much coming at once, and I'm trying to install my Figma to see if I can follow, but I'm not following honestly.
Okay. Luckily it's been recorded, yeah. So you can install your Figma, or you can follow me through. Then rewatch it and see if you can practice as you go. Yeah. But eventually you have a problem, then you can still reach out to me and we'll see how we can tackle that. But if you're having problems with your Figma, you might want to pause a bit. Let's run through because that one is not going anywhere. Run with me with this, then you can now practice when you go to your Figma. Well, with what I've done, right? So which one doesn't resonate with you properly?
No, probably honestly everything, but I think I'll watch the video again.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Epelumi, I think I saw your hand. Do you have a question for me? Yes. Question. Ibrahim, yeah?
Sorry, please, can you repeat what you did with adding color to the circle? I didn't quite get it.
Okay, yeah, so that's on the design panel side, yeah. So I've not gotten there. I actually want to take you guys on the layer side, what they do, then before I then come to the side. So when I come here, I will be extensive enough for you to get it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, cool. So I'll just run quickly. First off, let me just do a general overview of what everything is. So this is where you can see quick action, you can see how to modify other things. This is a whole different stuff. It will be best if you learn as you go, and as we go on, we just then dive into what they are, right? Now this second one is your move tool or your scale tool. So I say move, if you want to move, you can just click on this and then you can easily move it, right? If you're on scale, I click on this, then I can scale it proportionally the way I want. Hold my shift key and then it is scaling just exactly the way I want it, right? Um, that's for move and scale, right? The second one, the frame tool. Now, frame is like your paper, your book, your journal, where you house all your text, your circles, your shapes, your everything, like a journal. For mobile, it's advisable to use the 13 mini or the 11 Pro, or stick with 375812. But then, if this is easier for you to remember, by all means, commit this to memory, right? 13 mini or 11 Pro. For tablet, 12.9 inches, right? For desktop, 14401024, right? All this you can play around with them, watch, paper, social media. I mean, you can play around with them. So that's for the frame, basically. Yeah. The slice tool, you might want to dig deep into that because although you might want to ignore that because you don't really need it for now. But yes, what it does is it slices something into two, as the name implies, it slices it, right? The second one, the third one is your shape tools. Now to get more of this shape, you click on the arrow there. You then see rectangle line, you see arrow, ellipse, polygon, star, and place image, right? The first one is rectangle. Click on rectangle, you can draw your rectangle. Next one is line. Click on it, you can draw your line. Arrow, click on it, you can draw your arrow, right? Ellipse, click on it, you can draw your ellipse. Say you want a circle. Now, circle is closely related to ellipse. So yes, go with your ellipse. When you are drawing, hold your shift key, right? Hold down your shift key and draw, right? And get a perfect circle. Both sides are equal, perfect circle. If you are drawing a rectangle and you want a square, right? Hold your shift key and you get a square. Whatever you're doing, if it's a line and you want it to be straight, right? Hold your shift key and it stays straight. If maybe it's not straight and you forgot to hold your shift key, you can come here and just change it to 0 and it becomes straight. I'll talk about outside soon. Polygon, draw your polygon as usual, hold your shift key, get the accurate sizes. Then if you want to increase, maybe you don't want a rectangle, you want a pentagon, right? When you zoom into the polygon, you see two lines, I mean two nodes, two dots. Click on it and then push it up. You can now get the size that you want, right? Star, highlighted star, just draw it as usual. Hold your shift key to constrain it and get a perfect star. Otherwise, you might have something like this, right? Then place images. This is you clicking on it, then you need to select an image you want to place from your file, from your personal file, and then click on it, click on open. Then they're saying click or drag to place. So I can click and then it just adjust the image, right? But then it's a little bit out of proportion. I don't want this. So I can come back here and then place image, select again. At the moment I see that okay, my mouse now has it, I can then draw where I want it to be and leave it, and then I have the image, right? Now this is one way of placing images. So we are done with this shape tool: rectangle line, arrow, ellipse, polygon, star, place image, right? So always fall back to the video if you need to get something clear. The next one is your pen tool. So this is what you use to draw basically. So the pen tool is another in-depth tool. It's a tool that when you master, you're nearly unstoppable on how you can use Figma. But I don't want to dive too much because of time we have and scope we want to achieve, right? But what the pen tool does is it gives you the flexibility to draw what you want. So you click, draw what you want, and you close it. So now this shape, you would not be able to achieve it with any of that shape tool. I mean, I can't get this with rectangle, I can't get this with line, but then with my pen tool, it gave me the flexibility to get a shape that I want to get, right? Maybe I have something I want to trace. Maybe I saw something somewhere, and maybe I want to just, I like it, I want to just trace it. Now with the pen tool, I can just come and then trace it the way I want, just keep on going the way you want, and you arrive at a solution. But I could send resources for if you want to master the pen tool, I can send you where to go, but I will not dive too much into that. Now the pencil tool is that the name implies pencil. So for example, you want to do some scribbles, you want to do some human writing, you can just use the pen tool and then do some signature, and that's that. Pen tool. Pencil tool, sorry, you've gotten it. Now you can't do this with pen, it will be too much work. You can't do with shape, but with the pencil, you've gotten it, right? So that's for pencil and pen tool, right? Next one is text tool. So this is, if you click on this way and then start typing everything you want to type. This way your text come into play. If you click on the pencil, I mean the text tool, the shortcut is T. So if you're anywhere, if I'm being rectangle now, I want to then type. Just click T on your keyboard, it goes to text. Click and then you start typing, right? I might be in T, my text, and I want to maybe draw a rectangle. Arrow on your keyboard, you're drawing a rectangle. If you click on all this, you will see the shortcut at the side. Arrow, rectangle, L line, O ellipse, and all of that, right? So we are done with the text. This is a new one for resources, component, plugins, widgets. We'll talk about that right, as we go. This is your hand tool. Clicking on it, you can then move. You can say you want to. Remember that this move, what it does is it moves this thing. It moves the selection. But this hand is like you flipping through your book. Maybe I want just click and drag, click, drag, click, drag. You understand? That's what this hand tool does. Then the last one is comment. So comment is if you are in a collaborative space, say the lot of us, yeah, all of us hop on this board, and I see something, I want to drop a comment for Rachel, maybe I can click on this and leave a comment. And once I leave the comment is now left for anybody as a collaborator on this file. So if you come, you can then click on it and see, okay, Manuel said this. And then you can reply, right? And I don't need to call you on the phone or tell you to hop on a call with me. You can chat in here, and when you've attended to this, I can resolve it, and that's that. The comment is gone, right? So that's just about the interface of Figma. You move the frame, it shapes the pen, the text, the hand tool, and comments. So over here, this is where you would want to modify your file. So if you want to change the name of the file, double click on this and then give it a name, right? You can click on the drop down to see other things. Maybe you want to delete it, duplicate, whatever. Just click on this. On the right hand side, you will see my avatar, right? So this is when I created my account. This is the image I used. This is my AVI. That's why you're seeing it here. Beside it, there is a share, right? Say we are done now, and I tell you to send me your Figma link. if you are using the desktop app, come here, click on share, you would see this interface, and then you can copy link and then paste it for me. If I click on the link, I would see it. Alternatively, you can come here and enter my email address, right? And when you're done, send me an invite. I will get the invite and I will access your file. So if you want to send somebody of a Figma file for review or whatever the reason you may have, click on the share, copy link. Now it's copied. So I can easily just paste it and then this is the link, right? But if I don't want to send you the link to the whole file, I want to just send you a screen, right? I want to export one screen so you can see it. Now, how do we export screens? I will click on this frame, right, at the top where the name is, this iPhone 11 Pro/X. I will click on it. I will then rename it to fit what I want. Maybe this is my home page, right? I will then rename it. If I'm renaming it, this is it here. Talking about rename, I can come here and double tap here and rename. Or I can come to this place, double tap it, rename. And I've renamed it, right? Or I can use the shortcut Control Arrow, and then I can now rename it. I've renamed it. Now, if I was talking about exporting, so say I want to just export this, may have done something here, I want to send it to you to give me your input on it, yeah? So if I click on it, I'll come to the bottom of this design panel, I'll see export. I will click on this plus, and then export as PNG, JPG, SVG, or PDF. If you're exporting as picture, stick with PNG, right? So you can either preview what will come out. Let me just change this color so that you will see what's happening basically. Yeah. So we can either preview what the end product will be. Then say just click on export. So it should ask you where you want to save it, and then I can click on save. So I now have this as a PNG. I can share this to anybody on WhatsApp or share it to anybody anywhere, and then get input, right, as a picture. So that's what export. So we've talked about the layers panel. Now, as you can see, everything I drew here, they appeared here. They are all layers. They appeared here. But if you notice, if I close this, everything is inside a frame. That's why you can see that this one has MacBook Pro 14 inches as a frame name, frame 1 as a frame name, and this as a high as a frame name. So if I draw a rectangle, for example, clicking on the arrow on my keyboard, or I come here, draw a rectangle, it's not inside a frame. So if I move everybody, say I move everybody now, say I just select this, and this, and decide to move. He will not move with me because it's not inside any frame. Well, once I put it inside a frame, right, I can then move. Yeah. So before we go into the design panel, say I want multiple of these circles. Say I want this circle 4 times. Do I need to click on the O or come here and select ellipse, then draw the circle 4 times? I mean, this is too much work because most of the things we do, we use rectangles almost 100 times. Does that mean I need to draw rectangle 100 times as I go? You can actually duplicate. You can duplicate an element. So there are 3 ways to duplicate: copy and paste, normal duplicate, and dragging. Right? Copy and paste. You click on this, Ctrl C, you copy it, right? Ctrl V, I pasted it. But now it's pasted behind this. Let me do that again. Look at this place. I just ellipse 1. Ctrl C, I've copied it. Ctrl V, I've pasted it, and I have ellipse 3. So now drag it outside. So I have 2, right? Another way to duplicate after copy and paste is to drag. I can click on this, hold my alternate down and drag it. Now I've duplicated, right? I click on what I want to duplicate. Shift is for constraint, alternate is for duplicate, right? Hold my alternate and drag, duplicate. Now as you're seeing, it's not in the same line. Maybe I want it in the same line. Still holding down my alternate, I hold my shift key, right? It's now in the same line. So I said there are three ways to do it. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, normal copy and paste, right? Ctrl C, I've copied it. Ctrl V, I've pasted it, and I bring it out, pasted. Another way to do it is the dragging. I click on this and then I drag it. The last way to do it is Command D. That is the shortcut. Ctrl D is the shortcut to duplicate. If I click on it, Ctrl D, I've duplicated it, I bring it outside. Click on this, Ctrl D, duplicated it, I bring it outside, right? So whichever one works for you, whichever one you feel you need at any point in time, just use it. As always, as you go, you can fall back to this, and then fast forward to this point, watch it and commit it to memory. So that's for duplicating. Now let's move to the right-hand side of things. We talked about the layers panel. These are where all our things are. We talked about this part. This way we can do whatever we want in them: move, frame, shapes, pen, text, share, right, preview, prototype. Now the right-hand side, there are three things here. We have design, prototype, inspect. Design, prototype, inspect. You'll be focused more with design panel. Prototype is, of course, when you know how to do interaction, some linking. So on design panel, whatever you click determines what happens here. For example, if I click on a shape, I have my x-axis, y-axis. I don't bother with this too much because as you move it, it moves on its own, so you don't bother with it. I have my width and my height. Right? So if I return this to maybe 250, you can see that it increases in width. If I turn this height to maybe 20, it reduces in height, right? Now this is the angle rotation, right? So if I rotate it, I put 30 degrees, so that it rotated 30 degrees. If I put 27.4, it's 27.4, but it's 27.4, right? This one is constraint. I'll just give an overview of what constraint means, but I will dive into it as we go, right? So constraint is you just telling this thing to stay one place. Whatever happens to you, stay one place. So if I tell you stay at the top left, maybe I tell you top left, yeah. Now if I increase this frame size, however, it will be at the top left. That's a given. That's for constraint. But as we go, I will dive into constraint when we are handling responsiveness. We'll dive into constraint. You can change it top right, left and right. You can change it bottom, however you want, right? This next one here is pass through. So how do you want this thing to be? Should it be pass through or should it be multiply? You will see this if I change the color. Color bond is different, lighting. All these features for this particular part is for mostly graphic designers, right? But for you, what you'll be most likely aligned with is pass through and normal, just these two. Very slim chance before you then move into color dodge or saturation, all of that, right? This 100% is how many percent of pass through do you want? So you can go and say I want 30%, so that it is now 30% pass through. It's the same color, but it's 30% pass through. I put an image, a stuff behind it, right? You're able to see a little of the stuff. Now, if I put this in 100%, you won't see that text behind it again because now it is 100%. Don't pass anything. But if I drop this to maybe 30, things that are behind, you will not see it. You will not see part of it. right? So that's for this passion. Next one is the feel. Now shapes have two things. We have feel and we have outline. For shapes, feel, outline. I feel or stroke. Um, Feel basically is, as the name implies, feel, just a color that fills the inside, right? Stroke, on the other hand, is a line outside, basically. So if I turn this off, I will say that okay, there's a line, there's still a line here. If I click on it and turn it on, turn this off, there's no line. It will just feel, you know. So I've handled fill and stroke. Now to change the color, you can come in here and change the color you want just by playing around with this. But remember I said colors are emotional trapped, so your your playing around has to be systematic, right? But then to change colors, you can just come and then change this to change the color. Select this kind of blue. Do you want it light blue or do you want it dark green? Sorry, light green or dark green, right? If you want to enter a text, maybe you have the color somewhere. You just enter it inside here, BD, 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 and it changes to that color. It's called a hex, Hex, hex color, right? So inside for a field, there are multiple things you can do for a field, not just solid field. I can decide I want this thing to be linear gradient. I don't want it to be field. I want something of this nature. So I can just change this place to linear, and then I can play around with how I want it. I mean, how I want it. I can also change the color. I mean, if I want this side now to not be this red, I mean this black, I want it like this. You are seeing how it's turning to. I say I want blue, I want it like this. You are seeing what's coming out, right? That's it being linear. I can drag this down so it fills everywhere, so you can see that okay, this is what I want. Linear. I can decide to go radial. Radial means it's coming from the center, right? It's coming from the center out. Radial. Angular. This is angular. It's coming from one angle, so you can decide the angle you want to come from, how it should spread, and all of that. So this is just you getting creative the way you want, user backed, and of course it has to be implementable, right? Diamond, this is diamond, so same thing applies. Diamond, right? And image. So I want to fill this circle with image. You know, actually there's one way to put image, which is coming to the shape tool, place image, selecting from what you want, and then placing the image. That's one. Another way to put image is drawing the shape, right? Say I want to put image inside this rectangle. I can draw the shape, come here, and fill it with an image. All I need to do is click on this side, select image. I'll now see this thing telling me to choose image. Click on it, select what I want to put inside there, and it just fills it, right? And the thing took the shape of this rectangle, it filled it. That's why some parts are cut off. If I say fit, it has entered inside completely, but then there's some part on the left and on the right. If I say crop, I can then decide to remove this one to the left and increase it like this, however I want, right? Tiles is like giving multiple of it, probably like 5. If I increase these tiles, maybe 10, you see that it might come in 4 different or 5 different formats. Tiles basically. But what you will use most likely is fill, fit, or crop. So that's another way to put images. Yeah. The first way is of course coming to this place image. Second way is getting the image from filling the shape directly. Say I want to fill a person face inside here. I can just come here. Maybe I have my shape down, my image downloaded, right? I click on this thing, come here, select image, then select my face. And it fills it. It just fills that circle for me, just like that, right? So that's for the fill. Stroke, you can do the same thing for stroke. I mean, with the same color. So you come here, change it. You want it to be linear, or you want it to be radial, or you want to put an image. Maybe everything's up to you, right? As for that. Now for the stroke, you will see different things at the stroke. The one here is if you want to make the stroke come outside. I increase this to 2. Let's just look at take an example here. 2 now makes it thicker, right? It's now inside. It's inside, right? Now if I want to come outside, it's now outside of the line of the image. Inside is inside of the image. Outside is outside of the image. Outside the shape, yeah? This is increase the size. If I want 10 pixels, it becomes 10 pixels outside. I want it inside, it then becomes 10 pixels inside. If you can go inside, you can decide to make it if you want it to dash, 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 or you want however you want it, right? But all this, as you play around with these tools, you get to familiarize yourself with them. Use them only when you need to use them. So that's it about this design panel for the shape tool. Now it's different for text, right? As you can see in this, if it's a shape, we have color, stroke, effect, export. If it's a text, then we now have this text layer, this text panel, where we can select the typography we want, right? Select the size, I mean the weight. Select the size, line height. I'll come to all this when we dive into typography. Letter spacing, paragraph height, how do you want it, left, right, fixed size. So this is a panel where you can then manipulate how you want this your text. It's not available for shapes because there's no writing there. But for text, then we now have something like this. So we can change it from regular to maybe black, stick, from black to maybe semi-bold, right? So that works. And of course, you have the color. If you want to change the color of your text, you have the fill here. So you can change it. You can give it that linear. Same thing applies. Give it the same linear. If you want to give it linear, that's fine. Put image if need be. I mean, if I put an image here, if you feel it works for you guys, I mean, by all means, put the image, but this one will come out, right? You can try to give it a stroke also. I mean, if you want to give it a stroke, this is how it will be. Turn this off, you have the outline, increase the size, normal stroke functionalities, change the color if need be, right? I'll just turn this off and on. So I can turn off and on as I want. If I want to show only the stroke, I don't want to show the fill, just use this eye, turn it off. If you want to show the fill, not the stroke, turn this on, turn this off, right? As the same thing for the layers panel. So I can turn this off, turn it on, the way you want. So I think that will be it for this design panel. I'll still go over this again in our next class before we dive into anything we're doing next time. I'll still go over this, but over the weekend prior to next class, I would like if you install, play around with this, come up with questions that you might have, and then we will tackle it next week before we then go into the matter of the day. So I will just run you through the slide completely. We've talked about this. Left-hand side is layers, right-hand side is the design. This is your workspace, right? So as I said, frames are like a papers, right? Phone screens, as we earlier highlighted. Papers, social media posts if they need be. So you use them to create all your designs inside a frame. Like this, it's a canvas. So this is where an artist sketches or artist draws, right? Or paints. This is your artboard. That is a frame, right? Figma give us presets, so we don't need to then create all these things by ourselves. So we just come here, select what was used by industries and then use it. So for shapes, these are the shortcuts I was telling you about. For rectangles, just click on the arrow. For oval, remember if you want to have a perfect a circle, want to have a perfect circle, hold the shift key and then constraints, basically. Then for text, the T, hold the T, just click on T, you enter your text and then start typing. Right. For vectors, guys, if you want to use the pen tool, click on P. But for now, just play around with rectangle, ovals, text. Just create different shapes, modify them, play around with their design panel, how to do, where was I just now? How to do all this, just play around with this, and then before we then move into how to modify pen to if time permits. So as I highlighted, there are two types of shapes, right? I mean, two parts of shape, the fill and the stroke. So in the fill, you can have either this solid fill, linear, radial, or there's a fourth one that we had. You can also put an image inside, that's what Elias highlighted. And for the stroke, you can have it, increase the stroke width. It can be thin, it can be large, it can be solid, it can be linear, however you want. It can also be an image, right? In shadows, I didn't deep dive into this because our time is fast spent. So probably in our next class, I'll talk about shadows and why we use shadows. But basically, shadows are for elevation. So if I want something to be above others, I'll put a shadow beneath it so it can pop up. We'll talk about that in our next class. And then ways to duplicate, as I earlier said, click on it, copy and paste, option and drag, that is alternate key, click on it, alternate, drag, duplicate, copy and paste, duplicate, or Figma shortcut, Ctrl D or Command D if you are Windows or Mac. Command D, Ctrl D, you just keep on duplicating one thing multiple times. Then for frames, I didn't highlight this, but I'll drop this slide with you, basically. But there you can group items, you can frame items. Say I want these two things. They're in a frame, of course, but I want them to be together. I want to move, so that if I move something, I want to just move these two. I can click on both of them and then just group selection. So now it's now a group. So if I move, they come together. These guys are not affected, right? So that's grouping. Then frame also, we've talked about frames also. And as usual, you can draw a frame without having to select from. Of course, you know, without select from this, just click on this place and draw a normal frame. Do what you want to do inside here, and frame can be inside a frame, no problem. Frame can be inside a frame, no problem. Then to ungroup, so I've grouped this, I've grouped these guys. I want to now ungroup them. Right click, you will now see ungroup, right? And then you can group them. So I'll just run quickly. Talk about frames, talk about groups. If you want to quickly move them, you want to scale just two things together, just group them and scale them so it affects just those two things, right? I wouldn't have to handle blur effects, but I will move it to the next class, how to create blur effect. But I know we did talk about pass-through, so we talked about exporting files. SVG is scalable, JPG is image, but it's small size. PNG is what you should actually move with, right? So quick recap, frames like a paper, you draw your stuff in there. Shapes, rectangle, circle, ellipses, stars, however you want to do it, right? You can fill them, you can give them a stroke. Stroke is that line you see outside. For example, in this Windows here, if I click on it, you'll then see a blue thing around it, right? So that's the stroke. So they use that stroke to show that okay, you are typing, right? That blue stuff around it. Duplicating, we talked about duplicating, option and drag, Command C, Command V, Control C, Control V, Control D, duplicate. Frames and group, Frames are basically what we talked about. And groups is if you want to move two things together without affecting the whole block, group them, then move them, right? Exporting, we talked about exporting, that is removing PNG. Most likely export the PNG. So for SVGs, scalable vector graphics, if you want to export all these your icons for developers, you export as SVG. But for now, right, when we get to SVG part, we'll talk about that side. But for now, you most likely deal with PNG and JPGs. And for renaming, I think I highlighted this. If you want to rename, um, if you want to rename a frame, right? Click on this and then double tap here. You can rename it, right? Or double click on just right here. You can rename it. Or click on it and then Control R. Then you can rename it. If you want to rename multiple, 1, 2, 3. Click on 3 of them. You hold your shift key to select more than one. If I click on this, hold my shift key, click here, I select 2 of them. Still holding my shift key, click here, I select 3 of them. To rename all of them, Control R, I then rename everything. And then all be A2, A2, A2. So quick stuff, right? But you don't need to commit all these things to memory right now. That's why it's a recorded version. So you can always fall back to it, get what you need to get from it. And then if you have questions, drop a message for me in the Slack channel or in my DM, that's fine. I'll attend to it as soon as I get across to it. So pretty much that is end of our session for today. I did not keep the time. But yeah. So if you have any question of any sort that you want me to run by you quickly, considering our time also, then I think you can say that now. But for next class, I'll also go through this. Messi, I see you're lost. That's fine. You can't get it once, except a magician. But always you can fall back to it and watch it and keep moving, right? But for next class, I'll also take you run through, answer your questions that you will have, give you a rundown of what it is, and then I would talk about what we have for the next class. So if you have any question for me now, right? I think I'll answer them now. Any question for me? Okay, in the absence of any question, I'll just run you through the design process quickly. Empathize, know your users. Define, know the problem. Ideate, get out quick solutions. Prototype, hyphenated designs and interactions. Prototyping, test, taking it back to your users to know if it works the way they want it to work. And Figma, install Figma on your device or use the Chrome, use the platform if you want to do that. Then play around with it. Of course, you know the left-hand side layers panel. The top is where you change your text, you move, you scale, you draw your shapes, or you share the link to whoever you want to share it to. The right-hand side is where you modify whatever you do in your canvas. So what you do for the right-hand side for text is different from the right-hand side for shapes. There are similarities in terms of color, outline, export, effects, yeah. But the only difference is that for text, you now have a new layer called text layer, where you can then modify the font you want to use, the size of the font, the weight of the font. By weight, I mean, do you want it to be bold, extra bold, or normal, right? Increase the spacing between text, how you want it, and all of that. But for shapes, you can't do all those. Then we have duplicating, 3 styles of duplicating. Click and drag, holding your alternate key to duplicate. Click, alternate, drag, duplicate, right? Ctrl C, Ctrl V, duplicate. Ctrl D, duplicate. There are 3 ways of duplicating. So whichever one works for you at the moment, do that. Then if you didn't catch up, You can run through by this course again and then this class again and watch it again. I will see. And if you have questions, next week we'll answer it. I'm available on Slack. I'll answer your questions. And I think if at the absence of any other questions, that will be the end of today's class. So I will stop recording now and I'll stop sharing now also.